Okay, so every October you see them. They're just everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Hanging off houses, lit up in yards, grinning from shop windows, skeletons.
The ultimate Halloween decoration, almost.
Right. It feels like maybe it's almost a cliche at this point, but when you actually stop and think about it, well, we use bats, ghosts, witches, spiders, but the skeleton, that's the only one that's like the actual remains, what we all, become.
That starkness, that universality. That's exactly why it's not just cheap plastic. It's got this incredible history. Thousands of years, really.
Wow.
Yeah. And our sources track this symbol across all that time, different cultures. So our mission today in this deep dive is to figure out how this bony figure became the symbol for a holiday all about, well, death.
And that line between the living and the dead.
Exactly.
That boundary. So we're going to look at, what, 3 main influences, 3 kind of chapters?
That's the plan. We've got ancient festivals, then medieval art, and finally modern horror movies and culture.
From fearing the dead to thinking about death to just spooky entertainment.
Pretty much. We're tracking its journey from like a necessary symbol of the other side to a serious reminder, and then into macabre fun.
Okay, let's dive in. To really get the modern skeleton, you have to go way back, right? To the absolute beginning of Halloween itself.
You do. You have to start with the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain.
Samhain. People always say Festival of the Dead, but what did that actually mean for the people back then? What were they doing?
Well, it wasn't just a party. Not really. It was serious business. It marked the end of the harvest.
Right, getting food in.
Exactly. Storing everything up. Because it also marked the start of the dark half of the year. The cold, the winter. Hyos Nagimhride, they called it.
The dark season. Sounds ominous.
It was a time of real anxiety, practically speaking.
Okay.
But the spiritual side mirrored that.
Okay.
And this is the absolute key detail. The Celts believed that on Samhain night, the boundary, the veil, you might call it, between our world and the spirit world, that's the one. They believed it became porous, really thin.
So spirits could get through.
Not just spirits lingering.
Yeah.
The dead themselves could actually walk among the living. That was the belief.
Okay, that explains ghosts, apparitions, that kind of thing. Makes total sense. But how does that fear, the dead are walking around, lead specifically to the skeleton? Why that image? Why not just, I don't know, a spooky shadow or something?
Because think about it. What's the most absolute, undeniable proof that someone was alive and now isn't?
Their bones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Their skeleton. Ghosts are.
Yeah.
Well, they're ghostly, right? Ethereal. Maybe you see them, maybe you don't.
Yeah.
But the skeleton, that's the solid thing left behind. The actual structure. The core of what we physically were.
Yeah.
It's the only part guaranteed to remain.
It's the lasting physical proof that life ended. The evidence.
Precisely. So in the context of Samhain, where you're literally acknowledging the presence of the dead, you need a symbol that's just as solid, just as permanent. The skeleton became that stark reminder. These spirits, these ancestors walking around tonight, they once had flesh and blood, just like you. They look like this underneath.
So it's a permanent marker of crossing over to the other side.
That's the starting point, that connection. The skeleton is the enduring sign of that transition. That's where its power begins.
That's powerful. Okay, so that sets up the skeleton as this essential sign of the dead being present. Now, fast forward a bit. We jump from ancient Ireland and Britain into medieval Europe. Christianity is dominant.
Right.
And the meaning seems to shift. It's less about fearing the returning dead, maybe, and more about thinking about your own death.
That's a great way to put it. What's really fascinating is the skeleton image doesn't vanish. Not at all. It gets absorbed, repurposed.
How so?
It evolves. Skulls, full skeletons, they become really central to what we call memento mori art.
Memento mori. That sounds heavy.
It means remember, you must die. And the skeleton was the perfect symbol for that whole idea.
So how did they use it? Where would you see these skeletons reminding you about death?
Oh, all over, especially in relation to death and burial. Think about elaborate tombs, funeral sculptures.
Oh, yeah.
You'd often see these things called transient tombs. They might have a lifelike statue of the person on top, and all their finery.
Right, looking noble.
Yeah. But then underneath, carved right below it, you'd see this gruesome figure, often a decaying corpse, or sometimes just a bare skeleton.
Whoa. So here's how you look now, here's how you'll look later.
Exactly. It stripped away all the earthly status, the vanity. The message was stark. Rich or poor, powerful or not, this is what awaits. Decay, bones.
That is intense. So it definitely moves the skeleton from just being a dead person to being a direct message to the living, a moral lesson.
Absolutely. But maybe the biggest thing, the most widespread visual tradition that really hammered this home was the Danse Macabre, the dance of death.
The dance of death. I feel like I know that image. Skeletons dancing with people.
That's the one. It became hugely popular, especially in the centuries after the Black Death swept through Europe. Understandable.
Yeah, I bet. So what was the point of these paintings or murals?
It was like a public service announcement almost.
Oh.
You'd see these huge paintings, often in cemeteries or on church walls.
Yeah.
They always showed figures representing death, usually skeletons, sometimes rotting corpses leading people away.
Leading them where?
To the grave. And the key thing was who they were leading.
Right. Everyone.
Everyone. You'd see a grinning skeleton grabbing the hand of the Pope, then the Emperor, then a knight, a merchant, a peasant, a child, a beautiful lady. Everyone lined up.
No exceptions?
None. The message couldn't be clearer. Death doesn't care about your job title, your money, or how important you think you are. It comes for everyone. It's the great equalizer.
Wow. That turns the skeleton into like an active character, not just a symbol, but the agent of death itself.
Precisely. A grim guide, almost.
Yeah.
Leading humanity's parade into the afterlife.
So, connecting this back, by the time modern Halloween starts really forming, mixing the old Celtic stuff, Christian holidays like All Saints' Day, local folk customs, the skeleton was already this universally understood symbol. It meant the end of life, yes, but also this heavy contemplation, this equality in death.
It was totally established, a fixture in religious art in public spaces, constantly reminding people, life is short, focus on what matters.
Okay, so we've got the ancient boundary crossing fear and the medieval remember you must die contemplation. Now, let's jump forward again. The last few hundred years.
Great.
This is where it feels like the skeleton leaves the churchyard and, heads straight for the haunted house. It becomes about fright, about entertainment.
That's the next big shift, absolutely. It's the commercialization, the aestheticization of death, you could say.
So what drove that? How did it become the spooky Halloween skeleton we know now?
Well, there are two really big forces in the modern era. First, you've got the whole Victorian Gothic thing. Literature, art, that whole vibe.
Yeah, Edgar Allan Poe, Dark Castles, that sort of thing.
Exactly. The Victorians were kind of obsessed with death, mourning, the supernatural, but in this very stylized, almost romanticized way.
Gloomy, but fashionable?
Kind of. And Gothic literature was huge. Think Frankenstein, Dracula, stories filled with crypts, graveyards, and yes, skeletons.
So the skeleton moves from being a serious moral warning
to being set dressing atmosphere. It became part of the spooky aesthetic. It wasn't really there to teach you about equality anytime.
It was there to give you the chills, make the haunted castle feel more haunted.
Pretty much. It became a tool for creating suspense, evoking decay, psychological terror. It was used for effect. Right. And this feeds into the rise of costume parties, Halloween gatherings becoming more about spooky fun.
And then I guess movies and mass production took over.
That's the second big force. The 20th century. Early horror films were massive.
Black and white creepy skeletons.
Oh, yeah. Think about those old cartoons. Stop-motion skeletons dancing around. Fun, but definitely eerie. And then came the Halloween industry boom, especially around the 1920s, 30s.
Cardboard cutouts, cheap decorations.
Exactly. Suddenly, skeletons were easy and cheap to mass produce. They were instantly recognizable. And they were marketed specifically as these eerie, maybe slightly comical representations of death and the supernatural.
So they became the go-to spooky symbol. Easy, effective, everyone knew what it meant.
It solidified their place. They became the reliable, fun, go-to fright for the holiday.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. It's kind of amazing. The plastic skeleton you grab at the store, it's carrying all this history. First, there's the echo of Samhain, that ancient fear of the boundary thinning, the dead returning.
The original connection to the other side.
Then, layered on top, is the medieval Christian influence. The memento mori, the Danse Macabre, the skeleton as the great equalizer, reminding everyone of mortality.
The solemn reminder.
And then finally, the modern horror layer. Gothic literature, movies, pop culture, turning that same symbol into something thrilling, spooky, entertaining.
Yeah, frightening entertainment, readily available.
It's all packed in there.
It really is. It's this potent mix.
Yeah.
So the skeleton you see today, it functions on all these levels, even if we don't consciously think about it. It's that stark reminder of death, yes, straight from ancient times, but it also emphasizes that whole thin veil idea that Halloween night is all about.
It's incredible, really. So much meaning in one object hanging off a porch.
Uh-huh.
So next time you see one, remember, you're not just looking at plastic. You're looking at thousands of years of how humans have thought about life, death, what comes after, even equality.
It's the ultimate symbol summarizing the holiday's deep themes: solemnity, fear, and now fun.
Which leaves us with a thought, maybe for you listening.
Yeah, something to chew on.
Yeah.
When we decorate with skeletons now, is it just, going along with the commercial trend? Or are we just using a spooky image because it's expected?
Or is there something deeper happening? Are we maybe subconsciously tapping into that really ancient tradition, that need to acknowledge our own mortality, maybe even confront it in a ritual way once a year?
What part of that whole journey, from the harvest fears of Samhain through medieval reflection right up to modern horror, what part resonates most with you when you see that bony face grinning back? It's something to think about. Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, I want you to imagine something for a moment. You're in, say, a vast, maybe slightly dark cathedral, and right there you see two incredible medieval tombs, but they're separated by maybe 250 years or so. On the first one, you've got this knight. Looks serene, right? Perfect armor, hands clasped in prayer, maybe even a loyal dog at his feet. It's, an idealized picture. He's sort of asleep in his status.
The classic image, yeah.
Dignified.
Exactly. But then you look at the second tomb, same scale, maybe for someone of similar rank, a bishop, a noble, but the sculpture, it's just, it's pretty horrifying.
What a contrast.
Instead of eternal rest, you're staring at this gruesome, decaying corpse. It's skeletal, maybe got bits of shroud clinging to it. Definitely gives you the feeling worms are involved. The flesh looks like it's literally falling off the bones.
Yeah, it's confronting. It's honestly one of the most dramatic shifts, I think, in art history and cultural expression. We go from showing the powerful look, dignified in death, to publicly showcasing their decomposition.
A huge leap.
So the question for our deep dive today is pretty straightforward. When exactly did European tomb art get so, brutally morbid? And what massive, maybe terrifying event made the skeleton the go-to symbol of mortality?
And that's the core of it.
Our mission today is to trace where this really jarring imagery came from, understand the rise of what's called the transient tomb, the cadaver monument, and really unpack why skeletons became the visual reminder of death, the memento mori, starting back in the late 14th century.
It really is a fascinating pivot point in history, and to get a handle on just how big that shift was, we need to look at what came before. What was the standard?
Like the baseline.
For centuries, really, before this change, funerary art was almost entirely focused on preserving social status, projecting status, and also the spiritual hope of the person who died.
So legacy.
Legacy, exactly. The tombs were all about that. The person was shown, like you said, in their best clothes, looking regal, often in that peaceful, prayerful pose. The whole focus was on the immortal soul, the life they lived, making sure their respect, their status kind of carried on forever. The actual body, the decay, that just wasn't something people put on public display.
Okay, so if the norm was all status and peaceful vibes, what on earth triggered this sudden, almost cultural demand to carve, rotting flesh and bones? It doesn't sound like a gentle evolution, more like you said, an emergency broadcast carved in stone.
That's actually a great way to think about it, an emergency broadcast, because we can date this artistic break pretty precisely. This specific macabre focus, the decomposing body as the main subject. It first shows up in the late Middle Ages. Specifically, things start changing in the 1380s.
The 1380s, that's specific.
Yes. That decade really marks the point where this new style becomes recognizable, and you start seeing it spread across Europe. It's quite a sudden turn.
Okay, so let's get the terminology right for this new style, because it's not just any spooky statue, is it? It's a distinct thing.
It is, absolutely. When we talk about these monuments, the ones showing the body decaying, the proper terms are cadaver monuments, or the more scholarly term you often hear is transient tombs.
Transient.
It basically refers to the state of having passed on, transitioned from life. And visually, they're doing something very intentional. These sculptures, they almost always show skeletons or bodies and, various states of decomposition, but their main function, the critical thing, was psychological and theological.
How so?
They were designed as this dramatic, very public reminder of mortality. That's the literal meaning of memento mori, right? Reminding everyone who saw them, remember, you must die.
And what's completely wild to me, and where this deep dive gets really interesting, is who commissioned these things. These weren't cheap, simple carvings. They were elaborate, expensive, and deeply morbid monuments commissioned by the elite, dukes, bishops, rich merchants.
It's exactly the highest levels of society.
People who spent fortunes making sure their status was like set in stone forever. So why would someone with that kind of status choose to be remembered for all eternity as a disgusting worm-eaten corpse? It seems counterintuitive.
But that contradiction, that's the whole point. That's what gives the Trans-Ember tomb its incredible power. It's a deliberate visual argument, a statement.
Right.
Often, these tombs even had two levels, a double-decker structure. The top part might show the person idealized, in their full worldly status, looking dignified in their robes. But then the bottom layer forces everyone to confront their inevitable decomposed form.
Wow. So high life up top, grim reality down below.
Precisely. The message is crystal clear. Earthly status, power, wealth. It's all temporary. Death is the great equalizer. It gets everyone in the end.
So by commissioning this, the wealthy person was sort of performing humility.
Performing humility, demonstrating moral awareness in the face of God. Basically saying, look, even I, the duke or the bishop, end up as just dust and bones beneath all this finery. It's this really amazing mix of public piety and, frankly, existential dread.
It still feels like a PR nightmare by today's standards.
Yeah.
But they leaned into it. You could just picture some wealthy merchant visiting the workshop, looking at the model for his tomb, staring down at his own future skull and thinking, yep, that'll be me. The psychological impact must have been intense.
Oh, absolutely. And that psychological weight, it came directly from the world they were living in. This artistic choice wasn't just, a random change in taste. No. If you connect it to the bigger picture, this whole shift was directly triggered, profoundly influenced by the single most catastrophic event of the late Middle Ages. We're talking about the Black Death in the mid-14th century.
Of course. The plague.
The plague didn't just kill a staggering number of people. It fundamentally shattered the way medieval society understood life and death. Death wasn't just something predictable anymore, something you prepared for religiously, something mainly for the old or the sick.
Right.
Suddenly, it was everywhere. Arbitrary, gruesome, unavoidable, and it struck down everyone. When, maybe a third or even half the population dies horribly and quickly, the whole idea of mortality shifts from being an abstract theological point to a terrifying physical, daily reality.
So art had no choice but to react, to process that collective trauma somehow. Society needed a new visual language for this overwhelming, constant presence of death.
Exactly right. And the fear, the fascination with death, it didn't just stay confined to tombs, it bled out into other major art forms too. Probably the most famous parallel to the Trans-Eye tomb is the rise of the Danse Macabre, the dance of death.
Oh yes, the skeletons dancing with everyone.
That's the one. The Danse Macabre showed death, usually personified as a skeleton, leading people from all walks of life, pope, emperor, peasant, child, everyone in this inescapable, grim procession or dance.
No exceptions.
No exceptions. And what's absolutely crucial here is that in both the Trans-Aves and Danse Macabre, the skeleton is the star. It's the central, undeniable symbol. It represents universal fate. It's the force that strips away every earthly title, all social standing in one terrifying swoop.
So the skeleton wasn't just like a spooky decoration. It became a powerful cultural icon, the emblem of the trauma the whole continent had just endured, an instant shorthand for nobody gets out of this alive.
Precisely.
Okay, so pulling this together then, the rise of these cadaver monuments, starting specifically in the 1380s, it wasn't just artists getting morbid for kicks. It was a necessary artistic memento mori response, a way to grapple with the immense societal shockwaves of the Black Death, and it forced the powerful, the elite, to publicly acknowledge the common end in a way earlier art didn't.
Couldn't, perhaps. And what's also really striking is how long this focus, this fascination lasted. This wasn't just a quick fad.
Really? Yeah. How long did people keep wanting skeletons on their tombs instead of, peaceful praying figures?
They stayed committed to the macabre for a surprisingly long time. These monuments remained popular, culturally significant for about 200 years.
2 centuries.
2 centuries. While the first ones appear in the 1380s, the style arguably hits its peak much later, really through the late 16th century.
Wow. And did the style change much over those 200 years? Did it soften up at all?
Quite the opposite, actually. Far from toning it down, the artistic commitment to the gruesome details often deepened. Especially during that peak in the 16th century, the depictions became increasingly realistic and sometimes gruesome.
More realistic? How so?
Well, Artists were clearly spending more time studying anatomy, observing the process of decay, looking at how shrouds actually fell on a decomposing body. They wanted the visual impact to be as visceral, as immediate as possible. It really shows this continuous, 2-century-long cultural preoccupation with the raw, physical reality of the body after death.
That sustained dedication to realism just hammers home how profoundly the Black Death must have reshaped the European mindset, its aesthetics. The trauma wasn't forgotten. It was literally carved into stone for generations.
Passed down, yes.
Okay, so here's the key takeaway for you listening. When you encounter medieval funerary art, remember there's this sharp dividing line. Seeing skeletons in decay isn't just generic medieval darkness. It was a specific, purposeful, and profound cultural shift. It dates specifically to the 1380s. It was triggered by the massive societal earthquake that was the Black Death. And it found its main expression through this very specific format. The cadaver monument, the transitum, its function. A potent, often very expensive reminder that even the most powerful person on earth ends up as just dust and bones.
And that potent reminder, that function, leads us right to a final thought to leave you with. If the transitum's core message was about the universality of death, how it strips away all wealth and status, think about the patrons, the people who actually paid for these things.
Right, the dukes and bishops again.
Exactly. They commissioned these chilling self-portraits in decay to be displayed publicly, often in prominent places like cathedrals. How might that constant visual confrontation with their own inevitable gruesome end have actually affected their worldview while they were still alive?
Did it make them genuinely more humble?
Perhaps. Or did seeing their future skeleton right there beneath the sculpture of them and their finery change how they wielded their power, how they managed their wealth, how they treated people in lower social ranks, knowing that death, that skeleton, was the great equalizer waiting for them all? The power of that artistic choice, that memento mori, it resonates far beyond just the art history. It was, in a way, a publicly mandated, intensely personal act of self-reflection, carved in stone for everyone to see. What did they truly learn from staring at their own ends? That's something to really ponder.